So, good morning, everybody. It is Friday morning, May 1st. And so, I miss being able to do that when I do announcements every morning. So, someday, hopefully, we'll get back to that. But welcome to our second session for this sophomore year on college planning. This one, we're going to focus specifically on what sort of things you want to major in. What kind of things are you interested in doing as a career and that you would be interested in pursuing as a college major. We talked a little bit last time about what majors are and minors are and that sort of thing. So we're going to focus in on kind of how do I figure out what is it God's prepared for me to do in the future. You know, last time we talked about a verse from Ephesians 2 that talked about how God's got some things planned out for us that He's prepared in advance for us to do, and that's the case for all of us, and each of you guys especially. So let's pray before we get started with that. Heavenly Father, this is a challenging time for all of us because there are so many unknowns in our future. God, we're thankful that you know the future and we can trust in what you've planned out for us. Lord, for these young people and the future that you hold for them, open their eyes to see who you've created them to be, how you've gifted them to pursue different careers and different goals and different passions, and help them to really understand who you've called them to be, and bless them as they take the steps now to prepare to grow, to be that disciple that you've created them to be. In your name, amen. Okay, so the gist of it is going to be, what do I want to major in? And so we're going to talk about that in the context of all sorts of different ways in which we can kind of start figuring out what is it that God really has called me to do. So let's look at a list here. One of the things that I'll talk with kids a lot about when they say, you know what, I don't know what I want to do in college. I don't know what I want to major in. I don't want to do for a future and that sort of thing. I ask them, what's your favorite class? Because a lot of cases, what you really enjoy doing right now in class is going to be an indicator of what sort of things are really exciting for you, what you really have a passion for, what you have a gift for. Sometimes I'll say, okay, so when you go home from school and you got all sorts of work to do, and obviously now you kind of check into Canvas and you got something you're supposed to be doing in every class. Okay, so what is it you choose to do first? And what do you put off to the end? And sometimes there'll be a message in that okay, yeah, that thing that I kind of really look forward to doing, that really is a class that I enjoy more than others. And that one that I keep always wanting to put off to the end of the day. First of all, that's a hard thing to do. Don't put off the thing that you dislike the most to the end of the day, because that's probably not going to be real productive for you. Get the stuff done with first that you really don't enjoy, and then you can look forward to the classes that you do like better. But think about that. What's your favorite class? What do you really like to do in your spare time? What kind of hobbies do you have? What kind of things do you just enjoy spending time on when you have a passion for? Some of us are more like a people person. In other words, we really like doing a lot of things where we interact with people, and some of us are more oriented towards getting things done. We like to see list of things we've accomplished and that sort of thing. So obviously, a people person is going to be somebody that's going to want to be looking to a career that's going to give them the opportunity to interact with a lot of people. I was just talking with a junior a while back, and is a person that really has some very obvious people skills. And so as we're talking about potential careers, they're not going to want something where they're going to be sitting at a desk all the time and working on a computer. They're going to want something that's going to engage them with people, and they're just natural at that. They're just gifted at that. Whereas some people love the idea of, oh yeah, I want to sit down and dig into this program and make some amazing things happen, crunch some numbers, or design some kind of new tool or whatever. So think about that sort of thing. Do you like talking or do you like thinking? Do you like thinking about things? Do you like studying things? Do you like reading about things? Do you like analyzing things? Or do you like talking about stuff? Do you like, physically going out and doing things with your hands, or physically engaging in stuff as opposed to just thinking and studying and creating and that kind of thing? Last year we did that Reese motivational profile, and I've still got copies of your results. So if you're looking for those, can't find them, that kind of thing, see me about that, or text me and email me, and I can dig that up for you. but that talked about things that you're really motivated by. What kind of things do you really, you know, get excited about and like to do and are motivated by? That's helpful for you. We did a spiritual gifts inventory too. So some of what you're going to want to do is, you know, take a little time to dig into that stuff that we started collecting in that Google form that we created last year. You know, college planning was the name of that. So look back at those results in that profile and look at those spiritual gifts that you have and that kind of thing. And we'll be doing some more stuff as we get further into next year that will help you kind of figure out some things that you're going to want to do in the future too. So on Counselor's Corner, there's a lot of resources that I prepared for you to use really from now until the time you graduate from high school. There's like different segments of the Counselor's Corner page that are set up for different things that you're going to need to do at different times. So one of them is college planning. So if you go on the high school or on the school website, you go under academics, you go under Counselor's Corner, and you go under college planning, you'll see something there that says my majors. And basically they ask you a bunch of questions and you answer those questions, and then they'll send you some results, and it'll give you some idea about, yeah, these are probably 5 things that'd be good for you to think about majoring in. Now, you know, it's not going to be an end all, do all, end all. It's just one tool. But the more you spend some time on some different tools like that, and the more you just start spending some time thinking about those sorts of things, you're gonna start to kind of gravitate towards, yeah, I'm thinking about these sorts of things that I might want to do. So that's one thing that's helpful. There's another tab on there on that same page. It's called Career Interests and Work Inventory Assessment. It really digs into some specific job fields. So for example, it'll ask you some questions, kind of get a general feel for what you're thinking about. And then it'll say, okay, if you're interested in healthcare, then let's talk about what part of healthcare you're interested in. Or if you're interested in technology or business or whatever, let's dig into some specific areas, because healthcare is a huge field. You can go anywhere from being a certified nurse's assistant, a CNA. You can get that kind of a position after just you know, a couple of years of Rock Valley. Or obviously you can go all the way up to like some kind of, you know, brain surgery where you're going to be in college for about 8 years and you got a residency and da, da, da. But, you know, then you got some really cool stuff that you can do with, you know, with helping people. So it's a huge field. There's all sorts of different things you might want to get involved in that. And then there's also going to be another tool on there. It's called the Career Information System. Okay. And I put some information right on the page here that shows you your first name dot last name is your login. And the password is RLHS 2020. You see it's a capital R, all the rest of the letters are lowercase. So this is a really powerful system to log into. And we're going to spend some time getting into how that system works, okay? So after you log in, you might have to complete some security questions and so on to kind of set up your account. But when you see this screen, you see that black bar that's across the top. It says assessments, occupations, education, et cetera. We're going to kind of work from left to right in terms of how the program works and what sort of things are there for you to do. But a lot of really cool tools. So when you roll over the word that said assessment there at the top in that black bar, there's going to be a drop-down menu. That'll be all sorts of different assessments that you can take to learn about your interests, your abilities, learn about different kinds of careers and how they can you know, be exciting things for you based on your interests and abilities and that sort of thing. So I've made some suggestions here about some particular those assessments that you could work through. The learning style survey is a really good place to start because it tells you a lot about how you learn, what things you learn easily, what things don't come so easily for you, what sort of ways you like to learn, because those sorts of things are going to tell you things about yourself that might help you kind of figure out, yeah, this is what I'd like to do a little bit more of in the future because this really works well for me. There's 4 different inventories that are under that category of what skills and work values are important for me. And just remember that I'm recording this video, so this is going to be posted on the Counselor's Corner. I'm going to put this PowerPoint on there separately, so you can go through the PowerPoint again and again and again as you're going through this. So you can literally have the PowerPoint sitting there and have your, you know, and switch back and forth from another tab where you're going to be able to go into the career information system and then look at this PowerPoint, that kind of thing. So that'll all be there for you. But there's like 4 different surveys under the what skills and work values are important to me. There's how do my interests relate to occupation? So in other words, there's, you know, after you start to figure out what some of your interests are, then there's a thing there for that'll help you figure out, okay, so what kind of occupations might be good for somebody with these particular interests that I have. And so that'll be some other stuff that you can play with there. And then the other thing I'd suggest is as you're going through this, go through some of the stuff with your folks. Okay, save some of the information that you're getting on that My College Planning Google Doc that you have, so that you can kind of refer back to it later on. But sit down and go over some of this kind of stuff with your parents, because you know, they probably know you pretty well, and they could probably give you some ideas about what sort of things they think you have an interest in, and what sort of things they see that you're particularly good at. And most importantly, a thing that can really help is you can just show them what some of the results were from some of these surveys and say, okay, do you agree with that or don't you agree with that? Because you're not going to agree with all of it. Sometimes you're going to get a result back and it's going to be like, how did they come up with that? Well, yeah, sometimes the program does quirky things, but you know, there could be something about that occupation or something about that ability that really kind of connects with you. And it might be something that your parents see more than you do. So spend some time with your folks doing something like this. You know, talk them into taking you out someplace, and, you know, hopefully sooner or later the restaurants are going to open up again, and you can talk them into taking you somewhere, and you can just, you know, lay out the stuff that you found and that sort of thing, and just start talking about that kind of stuff. My kids and I spend a lot of time at Dairy Queen talking about those sorts of things. And so, yeah, you know, it's amazing how much you can share and learn over you know, a milkshake or something like that. So it's a really cool thing to do. There's also a button on there for a thing they call reality check, that talks a little bit about, okay, so what should you be thinking about as you think about a career and future income and those sorts of things. Because a lot of times people don't have very realistic idea about you know, what salaries are going to be really good, and what cost of living is like, and what sort of things you need to plan on. The reality check is really a cool tool to go through about that. You know, I've had people come and say, you know what, I'm making $10 an hour already at Woodman's. You know, that I could make $20,000 a year. Well, yeah, working full time at $10 an hour, that's true. That does equal about $20,000 a year. You know, you're going to lose some of that in taxes, and by the time you get done with that, you're probably going to be able to pay for a place to live and a car. It won't be a real fancy place to pay to live, and it won't be a real fancy car, but that's about all the farther $20,000 is going to get you. So, you know, unless you got some other way you're going to find, like clothing and food and, you know, those sorts of little things, at $10 an hour is not going to get you very far. So lots of different directions we can go that are going to be a lot more beneficial to you than that. So this is a screen that I set up, and we've got a little video, kind of a tool here that I'm using to kind of walk you through that. And we'll see, I'm not sure if it's going to work as a part of our Zoom thing here, but you'll see if you scroll over this, there's a little button down here you can push, and then the little icon thing here is going to cruise all around and take you into some of those places I just talked about. So this PowerPoint is going to be posted for you on that site, so that you'll be able to click on it. It'll show you how to navigate around this page so that you can find all the stuff that I was just talking about. Okay. Okay, so here it talks about, you know, roll over the occupations tab at the top. That's the second tab. As you take a look at the black line across top, first one was assessment, second one's occupation. So if you roll over occupations, this is where you're going to be exploring some of the different occupations available for you. And they've got a thing called the career cluster. And this talks about just large career fields and what kind of positions are available in that field. So for example, if you're thinking, I really want to do something with business, okay, so it's going to have a cluster that has to do with business, and you can kind of roll over all the different areas of business that are a possibility for you, or something like engineering, or you know, other main cluster areas like that. And then you're going to be able to select specific occupations that'll get you details on like hundreds of different jobs. So you can drill down all the way to, like, I want to be an ophthalmologist, or you know, I want to be a Spanish teacher, or I want to be an accountant, or I want to be you know, an engineering technician of some sort. And it'll break you down all the way to the point of like how much money those people typically make, what kind of education, how many years of education it takes to get that kind of a job, how many jobs are going to be available in that field in the next few years, how fast is that field of occupation growing, all that kind of stuff is gonna be there for you. So you really be able to get some good looks at some occupations. And a lot of those occupations actually have a little video there that you can watch, and it'll literally show you a person doing that job and talk about what that's like and that kind of thing. So you can kind of get a feel for, you know, what it would be like to spend a day in the life of a person in that occupation. So a lot of cool things you can find there. There's a tool on there called Experiment with What Occupations Match Your Preferences. And that kind of thing can be a really helpful way to kind of start connecting what you prefer, what sort of things are comfortable for you and that sort of thing with specific occupations. And then there's another one called having to assort occupations. That's an option that can kind of help you kind of sort some things down into areas that are going to fit for you. It's going to ask you some questions. It's going to sort some things down and end up with some ideas of suggested occupations that would be good for you. There's all sorts of other tools there on Counselor's Corner too. There's some other search possibilities for you for my majors and that kind of thing. So tools there be good places for you to spend some time. So again, it's on the school website under Academics, Counselor's Corner, and this section is college planning. Okay, so you roll over the Education tab at the top. And that's going to start with you know, a bunch of different tools that kind of drop down in the menu. So one of them can be, what can I study? And so that'll be different majors based on the clusters, the career clusters that we talked about, and the career areas you might be interested in, that sort of thing. So what programs of study kind of fit with that career cluster? There's another really helpful tool too it's called How Do I Choose a School or Program? And then you select Sort Schools. And what they do is they ask you a bunch of questions like, do you want a 4-year degree or 2-year degree? So let's say you pick 4-year degree. Then it's going to ask you, like, what size of school do you want to go to? What part of the country do you want to go to for a school? Do you want to go to a public school or a private school? You know, how expensive of a school are you interested in? How selective of a school are you interested in? You know, do they take like pretty much anybody that applies, or do they only take like the top 10 or 20%? You know, that kind of thing. And so what you do is you keep answering those questions, and then you just continue on to the next one. And when you get done to the end of those questions, and one of the questions is going to be, what do you want to major in? What kind of career do you want to pursue? What degree do you want to major in? So you answer that question. When you get to the end, you'll have a list of colleges that meet all the criteria that you just gave them. And so, you know, you could end up, if you're going into something like, you know, engineering, let's say, and you said you wanted to go to school in this part of the country, then, you know, you'll probably end up with schools like University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign and Bradley and UW-Madison and so on. Again, it's going to depend on if you pick public or private and large or small and all that sort of thing. If you end up with too small of a list, you can kind of go back through, change some of your choices, and the list will get bigger. The list is too long, and you can, you know, you got like 100 schools to look at. Well, that's too many. You know, back up and maybe change some of the things that you put in those questions, and then you'll end up with a smaller list. And then from that list, you can literally just click right on that school, and it'll take you right to their website and take you right to information about, you know, what kind of programs they offer and that sort of thing. So a great way for you to start thinking about, you know, I got no idea what school I want to go to. Where do I begin? Great place to begin. So, and again, there's a little video thing here to walk you through that. You follow the little cursor, and it'll show you and all that kind of stuff, and you'll be able to figure out how to work that education component. There's another thing on employment. You'll see that was the next after education is employment in the black bar there at the top. Okay, so you can find out more about just the world of jobs and how those relate to different majors and different careers, and some things in there having to do with different resumes and recommendations and processes for getting jobs and that sort of thing. So a lot of cool information there. The last one, it is the My CIS portfolio, and then there's a drop down there for a college entrance GED Asvab tests. Okay, so this is where we as a school provide you with prep classes, prep programs for ACT and SAT. Okay, So really cool tool. There's a lot of different practice tests you can take. There's like 4 ACT practice tests you can take on there, and they're like actually retired ACT questions. You go and you click on the English part, and it'll be timed just like the ACT English part is, and the questions will be just like the ACT questions. You'll be doing it online instead of on paper, but it's really a great practice test. So you can go in and do that anytime. Okay, so it's under that MyCIS portfolio, and then under the testing component. And then there's a company called Peterson's that's been doing college prep for like 50 years. Most of it obviously in books years back, but now they've transitioned that into a totally online program as well. And again, we've provided that for you free as students of Rockford Lutheran. We as a school pay for it. So you've got a free prep program on there for ACT and a free test prep program for SAT. What they'll do is they'll have you answer some questions, and they'll kind of get a feel for like, okay, so what part of math do you struggle with? Are you really good at geometry, but not so good at algebra? Okay, so then they're going to kind of create a list of things for you to work on that's going to be focused on algebra, because that's what you need more help with. And so they really kind of, it's even better than buying a book, because now you're going to be focused on the areas that you need the most help with. So it's really a cool tool. So I encourage you to start looking at that and maybe take some of the practice tests, that sort of thing. Typically what I'm going to recommend is that you start taking those college entrance tests at the end of your junior year. Okay, you can start earlier if you want to, but the benefit of waiting until the end of your junior year is that you'll have all your junior classes under your belt. So if you're taking Algebra 2 or Pre-Calc your junior year, it's going to be really helpful to get that class done before you start taking ACT or SAT. Typically they have one that's offered in April, and they have one that's in June, July, and so on. So those summer ones are good to take, because you're going to be totally done with those classes. Usually the June one's pretty early in June, so it's not like you've forgotten everything you worked on over the course of the year and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things that we provide for you to work on in the course of this next year to get ready for those. But that's a good time to be taking those. You'll get the results back typically in less than a month. If you want to keep taking them more than once, you can take your ACT, SAT all the way up into, let's say, September, and still get it back in time for your college applications. Now remember, we said your beginning of your senior year, August of your senior year, you need to be done with your college search process. You need to be done with your career search process. And that's when you start turning in applications. So you can take your last SAT, ACT like in September-ish and get the results back in October, and then you'll have those results to include in your November college applications. Okay, so that can work, but that's kind of pushing the limit. So that's why I suggest taking the April, June, July ACT, SATs. So there's some things you can look at and so on. One of the things I'll mention, a lot of people say, does it pay off to do a college test prep program and that sort of thing? The only thing that matters really, and ACT will tell you this right from the get-go, you want to do good on the ACT, take hard classes, do your homework. That's really all there is to it. Take hard classes, do your homework. Now, then people ask, well, then what's the point of doing a test prep program? Well, the test prep can be helpful because it's going to help remind you of things that you worked on like freshman, sophomore year that you might have totally just forgotten about. So that's helpful. The other thing is it does give you a chance to kind of refresh and kind of jump back into some things that maybe you kind of struggle with a little bit before and get a little help with and that sort of thing. So those are the ways that, a test prep program can be helpful. The bottom line, though, is the only way a test prep program is helpful. And it doesn't matter if you do this online one. It doesn't matter if you do just a book that you buy from Walmart. It doesn't matter if you spend $4,000 at Huntington. And yes, a lot of people do spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a test prep program at Huntington. Okay. Now, the bottom line is the only thing that's going to help is if you spend a lot of time on it. Okay. The amount of time that you spend on the test prep process is what matters. You open up this program and you take a couple of the practice tests and you spend a few hours working through the test prep class there from Peterson's, that kind of thing. yeah, it's probably not going to do a whole lot. When we're talking about really doing some serious work that's going to increase your test score, we're talking about you should be spending somewhere in the neighborhood of 30, 40, 50 plus hours working on the test prep program. That's why spending $3,000 at Huntington works, because they make you come, and your parents are going to make you come because they paid that money. They're going to make you come down there and go through those sessions with them, and they're going to give you work to do on your own. And again, your parents are paying big money for it, so they're going to want to make sure you do it. And so, you know, it's going to be helpful. But the real bottom line is it's going to be helpful because you're spending time on it. Okay, the amount of hours that you put into it is what's going to be what determines whether or not the program works. Yes, it does matter which program it is to some degree, and some are going to work better for you than others. But the real bottom line is the best program in the world is not going to matter if you only spend 5 or 10 hours on it. So just, you know, that's the bottom line. It's going to be something that takes time. However, realize that, you know, a 2-point increase on your ACT score could open up different schools that you're now able to attend that you couldn't otherwise. It could also open up huge scholarship opportunities. A lot of scholarship money is based on ACT and SAT scores, because, you know, the people that give away that money, they want to know, okay, you could have gone to kind of a, you know, really easy school and got all A's in math, but yeah, we don't know if you really learned a whole lot in math at that school in those classes. So why don't you show us what you know in math by taking the ACT? Because now we know what questions you're answering and what your abilities are. We're going to be able to compare you to everybody else in the country. That's what they like to do, is they're figuring out who they want to give their money to. So ACT, SAT scores are pretty significant when it comes to scholarships. So that investment of that 30, 40, 50 hours in the test prep and scoring a couple points higher, it could easily be $10,000, $20,000 a year difference over the course of your 4 years of college. Okay, so let's see, $50,000 divided by 50 hours worth of work that I spent on that. That means I essentially, when I was doing that test prep program, I was making $1,000 an hour. That's a pretty good return on investment. Okay, so think about that as you're thinking about test prep and college testing, that kind of thing. But the bottom line is always going to be, take the hardest classes that work for you. Take the hardest classes you possibly can and do your homework. Get the best grades you possibly can in those classes. That is guaranteed the thing that's going to make the biggest difference for you on your test, college entrance test. Okay. Okay, here's one thing that I think is really helpful for people when they're thinking about what they want to major in. And a lot of people, you know, don't do this. A lot of people, I don't know, they don't even know about it or something. It's kind of like this little known technique, this little trick out there, but I think it's huge, and I think it's really going to be beneficial for you. Okay, it has to do with the college catalog. Okay, the college catalog is a book that the colleges have to produce that lists all the different degrees that they offer, all the different majors and minors that they offer, and all the classes that you have to take to get that major or that minor, to get that degree, that bachelor's degree, that master's degree, whatever, in that area. The college catalog is technically like a contract between you and the university. If you go to that university and you're putting down in writing that, okay, I want to complete a program here in physical therapy, then the idea of the contract is they're telling you in that college catalog, these are the classes that you have to take to get a physical therapy program degree. Okay. Okay. So that's kind of like the agreement that we have. If I do what's in this catalog in 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, whatever, you're going to give me this bachelor's degree, master's degree, doctoral degree, whatever, in physical therapy. That's the agreement. Okay, so that's why every college has a catalog. It's got important stuff in it. Most people never look at it because, like I said here on the screen, it's kind of like reading a phone book. It's not really interesting stuff. However, there's a lot of things that can be helpful to you in terms of figuring out what you want to do as a major by taking a look at what's in that college catalog. So you go to a college website, and again, I've got a screencast thing here for you to look at to do this, but you go to the college website and you search for the catalog. They're not always easy to find. Every college puts them in a different place and all that kind of thing. So they all have a college all the colleges have a search bar on their homepage. So just use that and put in catalog, and then find the information that they have on that degree or program that you might be interested in. Take a look at the list of classes that you have to take for that program. Take a look at the list of classes you have to take to be an engineer, to be an accountant, to be a teacher, to be a business owner, to be whatever it is that you're interested in doing, a psychologist, et cetera. Okay, and then somewhere in the catalog, they have to also have a course description, a little paragraph that says this is what that course is about. That's something that has to be in the catalog, and so it's always going to be there. So take a look at the list of classes you have to take, and then go and look at the descriptions for those classes and read through them. And if that description sounds like, yeah, that sounds like something I'd like to learn more about, that sounds like something I'd like to do, okay, then that's a clue that's something you probably ought to be thinking about doing. If it sounds like, yeah, that's really not very exciting to me at all, okay, well, then that's probably not a class you're going to want to take. And if there's a bunch of those classes you don't want to take in that area, that's probably a bad sign. Okay, so when I went to college, I knew I wanted to be a high school teacher. Not quite so sure exactly what I wanted to teach, but I knew I wanted to be a high school teacher. I had some ideas. I'd always been involved in music, so that was something that was on my list. I always enjoyed science, so that was something kind of on my list. I wasn't very good at math, so that was definitely not on my list. I like social studies. That was something that was on my list. And I went to college in Nebraska, so we had to take 2 majors. I had to major in 2 different things to be a high school teacher. And so, okay, so what am I going to choose? I got to pick 2 things here. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be. So I took a chemistry class my freshman year, and a really good prof. It was a really interesting class. It was just a Chem 1 class. It was a basic level Chem Gen Ed class, that kind of thing. And I thought, this is really kind of interesting. I kind of like this. I've always kind of liked science. And so I got a catalog, and I went and kind of dug into what some of the upper level chemistry classes were going to sound like. Because if it's going to be my major, remember, I'm going to be taking like, a dozen chemistry classes. If that's going to be my major. Okay, so I better, be really okay with that. So I started looking at the course descriptions for some of the upper level chemistry classes. Yeah, that didn't really sound real exciting. So, okay, so then what am I going to do? So, and I looked at social studies. I've always kind of liked history. So I started looking, and I had a history class my freshman year in college too. And I kind of enjoyed that. Professor was kind of goofy, but he was kind of fun to learn from, and he was super smart. So it was a great class. I enjoyed it. So, well, okay, same thing. I better look at some of the upper level history classes, because I'm going to have to take another dozen classes, and this prof's really hard, and he teaches a bunch of them. So, I got to make sure I really like this, or else I'm going to crash and burn. So I looked at the college course descriptions for the history classes. This stuff sounds kind of interesting. Yeah, I'd like to read a book about it. Yeah, that does sound pretty good. So I ended up being a history major, and a music major was the other thing, because I really like music and that sort of thing. I played instruments all my life and that kind of thing. So I ended up being a history major and a music major. Those were the 2 that I picked. But a lot of it had to do with the fact that I looked at those classes that I had to take, and looked at those descriptions and said, yeah, that's something that makes sense for me. So that's what I did. And